Okay, so I'm back. And I was just sharing about pastors and stuff and how I'm hoping that this series of me sharing, I'm not going to be talking so much about pastors, but I'm hoping that this series of me sharing will encourage you to see your pastors as real people and not discourage them or hurt them with criticism and stuff. So that's what I was just sharing. So, what I'm going to be doing in this series is um, sharing my struggles and how I'm dealing with them, and hopefully it's not going to get you all depressed. But because I'm sharing this, I'm being really vulnerable. I'm putting myself out there, and you could hurt me, and other people could hurt me, but I just feel like this is really, really important, and so I'm doing it. I am going to be somewhat careful. I'm not going to share my deepest, darkest secrets because this is public and because people do try to hurt other people, and I've been hurt enough. So I don't need to look for more. Sorry, I wasn't doing this out where you could see. Um, anyway, um, so, but one thing that I also want to make clear is that I really strongly believe in not sharing other people's dirty laundry. So you may kind of hear me humming and hawing some when I'm sharing things, simply because I'm I'm not rehearsing these things ahead of time. I might write down a couple notes to make sure that I don't forget to share something, but I haven't really thought through what I'm saying. And so I'm trying to come up with a way of sharing things that's not going to reveal the identity of somebody or anything like that, because that's just not my place and that's not my purpose. Um, so anyway, so don't be like looking for juicy gossip kind of stuff. You're not going to hear that here. Um, so anyway, so yeah, so I don't believe in hanging out other people's laundry, and I also, even though I'm going to let myself be as transparent as I can, and um, to share deeply, I'm not going to do anything that's not safe for myself. I don't just mean physically safe. I mean emotionally safe, because I have been hurt a lot emotionally by people who just are cruel. What else could I say? And I know you know what I mean, right? And there's just people like that out there, intentionally or not. There just are people like that out there, and so I will be kind of careful. So you're not going to hear the deepest things, but just know that, hey, what I share, there's probably stuff that's like 10 times deeper than that, that's hurts and troubling and all that stuff. But anyway, so some of what I've been through lately, and I wanted to share this because um, I, I know, first of all, I know because there are some who have shared with me, but I figure if some have shared with me, then there are also many who have not shared and probably won't share, who also need to know that there is somebody going through something similar to what they're going through. Never the same thing, you guys. Each of our lives is so individual, and so we never go through the exact same thing as anybody else. But enough the same that gosh, there's somebody. I'm not alone, and there are other people out there who can understand and hold me up. Okay, so holding people up. Let me just kind of explain what I mean when I say that. There's a story in the Bible that's true, about Moses, and this was during when the children of Israel were wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, and they were attacked by, I think it was the Amalekites, and so they had this huge battle. And the funny thing is, and God works differently every time that he works, okay? So we can't like go by a formula or anything. But in this particular case, every time that Moses lifted up his hands, his side was winning. And every time that he put his hands down, his side was losing. And he's human, so he couldn't keep his hands up for that long. I mean, just try standing in one place with your hands up for hours on end. You can't do it, right? So what happened was they had him sit down on a rock, and Aaron and a guy named Hur, H-U-R, like in Ben-Hur, came and they held his arms up for him. And so when I talk about holding one another up, that's kind of what I'm talking about, is about how, the truth is that none of us can do this by ourselves. We need other people to hold up our hands. We need other people to come alongside us, and not to say, oh, you can do this by yourself and you're really unspiritual and bad if you don't, which is what happens a lot, right? You share your struggles and people say that you're a failure or that you're sinning because you're not just handling this really well on your own. And the fact is that God doesn't intend for us to handle these things on our own. We're supposed to be handling them in fellowship with others. But when you get hurt a lot, when you've shared your struggles in an unsafe way or with people who aren't safe, and so then they've hurt you, you do get to the place, like I kind of have for a while here, where you don't share with other people and you kind of isolate yourself. And that's what's happened for me. I've had a lot of stuff in my life that has kind of led to that and contributed to that. I mean, I'm the kind of person, I'm really literal, and I don't pick up on patterns easily, or on things that aren't said easily. Like this isn't something that hurt me, I'm just saying how I'm literal. When I was, I think 3, my mom has told me that she told me to go put on a clean undershirt. So I did. The thing was, when she went to give me a bath, I had 3 undershirts on because she didn't tell me to take it off. And I wasn't being snotty. She didn't tell me to take it off, so I didn't know to take it off, That's how I am. And so I just don't pick up on patterns and stuff, and everybody else might pick up on them. My freshman year of college, I was in an honors English class, and the professor said for our final to write the paper on anything that we wanted to. And so I did. And he called me into his office. I put tons of work into it. He called me into his office and he said, this is one of the best papers that I've read, but I'm going to have to give you an F because you didn't follow the instructions. And the instructions were to write it on anything that we wanted to. And he said, but everybody else knew that we had been following a pattern of compare and contrast all semester, and you didn't do that. Well, you know what? I don't pick up on patterns. And, I won't say that I didn't deserve that F. I apparently did. I think I probably did, because maybe I should have been smart enough to pick up on those patterns. But it's just not how I am. I don't pick up on those things. And there are other people who are the same way, and it's like people just assume that you pick up on those patterns. When I was a young adult, my dad and one of the other men in our church led the worship. And it was a really conservative church. And they had been asking for over a year, maybe a couple years, for someone else to take over that particular ministry for them so that they could do something else. And no one had stepped forward. And I finally realized, I took a little bit of conducting in college, and I, and I sing, and my dad had taught me how to, wave my hands to the beat of the music and everything. And I have a fairly decent voice, or had a fairly decent voice at that time. And, I could do this. So I volunteered to do it. And when I volunteered, then another gal from our church who had a master's in music, so she had a really good, she was very well qualified. She also volunteered. Well, neither of us, or at least I wasn't, I guess I can't speak for her, but I don't think she was, neither of us was trying to cause trouble. We were trying to, volunteer to serve, and because there was a need. But I'll tell you what, for 2 hours, our church debated whether or not women could lead worship. And the final decision that we came to, and this was probably 30 years ago or so, maybe not quite 30, but between 25 and 30 years ago, the final conclusion that they came to was that if we let women lead worship, then the next thing we would be doing is ordaining homosexuals, which was really a bad thing then. And Did I feel condemned? Oh my gosh, yes. And my intention had not been to stir up any trouble or anything. And I just, it didn't occur to me that because I was a woman, I couldn't lead worship. And you know, I didn't think through it. I didn't think, gee, is it okay for me as a woman to lead worship? It didn't even occur to me that being a woman factored into it at all, is what I'm saying. It just wasn't, I just didn't think about it. And I guess maybe I should have, but you know, when I thought back about it later, I realized all of our choir directors up to that point had been women. So I'm still not quite clear what the difference is. You know, the worship leader didn't preach or anything. They just stood up there and led the congregation in singing, read the announcements, that kind of thing. So it wasn't like, I don't know, yeah, it wasn't like pastoring or something. Anyway, which, you know, I would have been a little bit more clued into. So I'm just saying, and I'm not saying that, you know, to put anybody down or anything. I'm just saying a lot of times we think, because people thought, and I found out, I think I shared a little bit earlier, you know, that a woman from my church who's older than me told me just like a couple years ago that I had just been a real troublemaker, stirring up trouble. And it was after I had mentioned about this whole incident. So I think that apparently people probably thought that I was intentionally trying to stir up trouble. Well, I wasn't. You know, it was just an honest misunderstanding, I guess you would say. It was an honest, I'm trying to do something good here, but it turns out that what I'm doing is really horrible. And I really felt, I didn't stop trying to minister at that point, but I really felt like I was, and then there were more incidents than just that one. There were a lot of different things, but where it was like, it seemed like every time that I tried to serve and tried to do something good, it was taken as if I was trying to do something bad. I couldn't figure out what the rules were. They weren't said, they weren't stated. Like nobody said, hey, you know, Dave and Cliff want to step down from leading singing, so we need a man to do it. No one said that. They just said, could someone volunteer? And I guess they assumed that everybody knew that they meant a man. But there were lots of other things like that, you know, it was like walking through a minefield. I never knew when I was going to do something that wasn't okay, or when I was going to suggest something or volunteer something that it would turn out would be like really bad and sinful, and I shouldn't have even suggested this or something, you know. And yeah, so what I'm saying is, don't assume that people are trying to be bad when they do something. I'm not going to assume that those people were trying to be bad when they made those assumptions about me either. I think that, you know, they were trying to follow what they thought was God's way, and they probably thought that if they could figure it out, that I could too, or something. I'm not really sure what they thought, but I think that it was all with good intentions. I don't think that anybody was trying to hurt me or discourage me. But the end result is that when you think that people are doing things on purpose and you're coming after them like that and everything, eventually they will get discouraged. I mean, gosh, think about it, guys. You know, it's like if you keep getting attacked, like one person said to me at one point, you know, if you drip water on a rock for 14 years, eventually it's going to get a hole in it. You know, well, you're going to discourage people, and you don't want to be doing that, okay? As Christians, we're supposed to be encouraging one another. That doesn't mean that you let somebody do something that's wrong. You know, if it was really wrong for me to lead singing, then yes, I should be stopped, but don't attack me as a person and make out that I'm, you know, trying to be a woman's liber or whatever, you know, which was like the unforgivable sin then. And you know, just, and I'm saying this like with people in general, you know, just try to be an encourager, not a discourager. So anyway, so that's just a little bit of, I don't mean to preach, but I would like you to learn from my experience, from my mistakes, from the things that have happened to me. And you know, you've probably had some similar things happening to you. If you're watching this, if you've stuck with this by now, it's probably because it resonates with you, because you feel like you and I have some commonalities. And so chances are, you know, you've experienced maybe not the same thing, but something similar where people have misunderstood your intentions and stuff. Or maybe you need to hear this because you need to stop and think about how, you know, that other people aren't necessarily intending to be bad. Your pastor almost certainly is not intending to be bad or lead you astray or anything. So if your pastor says something that's wrong, just like I said, if I say something that's wrong, it's not because I intend to lead you astray or anything. Maybe I'm just mistaken. Maybe I need to have some correction. And you guys, a lot of times, this is what I meant to say in that last video, a lot of times that correction needs to take place not from you, but from the Holy Spirit. Pray for them, because you know what? If they are truly open to the Holy Spirit, and most pastors are, most Christian leaders really are open to the Holy Spirit, they want to do right, the Holy Spirit will convict them. Allow Him to do that. Don't try to be the Holy Spirit Junior. And but pray for them, lift them up, pray that they would be strengthened, and that, you know, that maybe that God would help them to see the error of their ways, and maybe also pray that God will show you whether you're wrong, because you might be the person who's wrong. I've been wrong before. I'm sure you've been wrong before. We've all been wrong before, right? So anyway, I hope that that kind of encourages you if you're going through something like that, gives you pause to think if you're a critical type of person. And I have more that I want to share with you, so I'm going to stop this video and start another one.